Chaos in the Outer Rim. The top Separatist commanders travel to the planet Bombadia, scouting for a new base. The Jedi Council sends Masters Windu and Kenobi to infiltrate and observe, but they are quickly discovered. And we are off. We have a really nice thematic matchup here today, droids versus clones, and the droids are first player. They have chosen Sabotage Showdown for their objective. In deployment, the main consideration both teams are looking at is ingress points for their slower primaries. So for the droids, that's Dooku going to be on their left side, closer to an ingress point to get up, and Windu, same thing for clones on their right side. Now, the actual card that was drawn is Secure the Exits. So on the Shatterpoint turns, there will be a little extra healing, but that probably won't come into play too much in the first struggle. To start things off, the droids draw Jango Fett. Now, he could easily go and contest an objective, but I think he's better saved for later with that powerful capture wire to yank someone off the objective without rolling any dice. So they will spend a force, put him in reserve, and instead they draw Magna Guards. Not great. They usually want to be moved up the field a bit before they go. They don't have a ton of mobility, but it's not terrible because it's not like they have to go and attack anyone. So they can't get to the far objective. The more middle one will just move up and go up the ladder to get central, whereas his friend will go out to the left, and then they'll take a take cover action to get a shove and a hunker, which will get into contesting range and give them a little extra cover. They'll take control of 3, and it goes over to Gar, who took control of 2. Gar will draw, and they get Mr. Windu. Not ideal. Windu wants to get into melee, and if he goes after those Magnas, he won't be on the right level, and Jango's just going to come and yank him off. So they will spend a force to put him in reserve as well, and instead they draw 2 12th, which is not bad at all. They can easily get to the left here, and if they get aggressive, a dash advance plus a shove on the attack could maybe get the Magnas off and the clones on. It is not super likely, but it's not impossible, so they'll give it a shot. Now, looking for probably 2 crits is what he needs. He doesn't get it. He gets 5 hits, but the Magnas with a big 5 blocks, rolling those 2 extra dice thanks to hunker and terrain cover. So absolutely nothing on the attack, but it was worth a shot. The clones will flip that third objective and score 3 for the turn. Going back to Separatists, they still don't want to go with Jango, really. They have control of that point, so instead they'll go off the top and get Mr. Kraken. He is in a great position to go and contest that right objective, but he can't really get 2 bodies on the elevated surface. He can't even get 1, really. So his best shot is to shove those clones off, which will be difficult, so probably going for the kill. No problem, though. He'll send his B2 buddies up with a dash on the tactical, and then advance himself, and he'll toss 7 dice into the 2 12th, defending with 6. He gets 3 crits through. His 3 hits all get blocked. That is fine. He doesn't really need the free tactical network. They should have lots of force. So instead, he'll go with a pin and 5 damage, trying to really hurt these ARF guys. The ARF will decide to spend their hunker to heal 1 and remove the pin as they try to dash and can't. They can't really dash out of range anyway, so just try to make it a little harder for those B2s on the tactical network. So here they come, dash, 5 dice attack. They get 2 crits and an expertise. Nothing the 212th can do about that. That is going to be 4 damage, wounded clone, and a shove to the edge of the platform because they're no longer steadfast. Nowhere for the B2 to follow up, but that's fine. They've got range on the objective there for the Separatists, so they flip it and score 4 after getting a momentum as well for the wound. Back to clones. Windu still not in a good spot, so let's draw from the top, and they get ARF. That's probably the best scenario for them right here, because they're a bit forward deployed, and they could go and contest both midline objectives, flipping them easily. So they'll do that. They'll do a dash with defensive maneuver, one getting out closer to the left side, one getting up the ladder, and then they will do an advance. So they go up the ladder on the left side and get into contesting range on the right. So the ARF could take some shots here, or they could just take another hunker. But against droids, you do want to put damage into those supports especially, because they can move them around so easily. So we'll take an attack instead of the defensive play. 7-on-7 from this ARF into the Magna, and bad attack roll, bad defense roll, but 3 hits, 3 blocks, nothing getting through once again on those Magnas. They'll try on the other side into some B2s, better attack roll, but really good defensive roll from those B2s. Only the 1 crit getting through, 1 damage and a pin, the damage goes away for protection, and just a pin on those B2s. Underwhelming attacks, but they flip both objectives. So not too sad there. The Republic scores 4. If the Separatists are able to get a wound, a one-shot on the ARF, then that will be both objectives flipped for them in the middle, which is really good. And pretty much anyone but Dooku could probably pull that one-shot off. Jango can't. It's unlikely. He'd need a lot of crits. So they'll go to the top, and they get the Shatterpoint. Really nice draw there. I think it's Grievous time. He's in his quad arm, so that should be a big bruising melee attack. On his tactic, he'll just tell this B2 to try and move, and instead they'll remove their pin. Then he's actually going to start by spending a forced scuttle. That way he uses his move action to climb, and that triggers the Magna Guards to move towards him with their reactive. And this guy's just going to get over the middle objective. It's a 2/3 chance that that will come up in a round 2, so nice to already be contesting it on the upper level. Grievous will take a big 8 dice attack, 5 dice thanks to Kenobi and the Hunker on the ARF. 6 successes for Grievous is good, blocked by 3 on the ARF. 3 get through, and that is just enough for the one shot. Grievous can go down the top of his tree and do 7 damage. Not too shabby. The ARF will spend their hunker to dash. Even though they can't heal, they'll get a little more central and clear up some space on that platform. Appetite for Destruction will trigger, so this B2 will move around the corner, trying to stay within contesting range, and they'll see maybe they get a nice attack through and can shove this clone. So that will be 2 hits to 1 block, which means the B2s do get a shove off, and they'll elect not to follow up. And Droids player will flip both middle objectives and score 4 big ones with another momentum from this round. Now, Windu's position is still not looking great, so clones will go to the top of their deck and get Kenobi. Since we've got something in reserve, I think we'll put Kenobi into reserve with his ability, and we don't want to go with Windu, so we'll put him on the bottom of the deck. He can still go, potentially when we Shatterpoint, and right now he's just in a standoff with Jango, which we don't like. Kenobi does get to do his little jump, and that just moves him up the battlefield a bit. Off the top then, we get Rex. He's not bad. His tactics, he will make pawns move forward, just to give him a little bit more mobility options for his turn, which will be coming up shortly. And then Rex will take an advance, go into the ladder. Doesn't quite get there, so he will spend a force to dash, which gets him to the ingress, moves him up. He can attack Grievous, who's now in the Cunning Warlord stance after flipping at the end of his turn, which means he does get movement. We don't want him to be able to move back to the ingress even though there's probably not space to come back up. We've got plenty of force, so Rex will spend 1 to use coordinated fire expose from the wounded ARF. Punching 7 into 5, Rex gets a pretty good roll. That's going to be 3 crits, 2 hits, and Grievous gets lots of expertise that do nothing for him, just the 1 block. So Rex will get 4 successes through. 4 is just enough that Rex can go along the top of his tree and still get a shove. So he'll do 6 damage, expose, and shove Grievous away. That's a pretty good chunk of health into the Warlord there, and it flips back this objective, as the Republic will score 3. Still no reason to go with Django, so the Separatists will go to the top of their deck, and they get General Grievous. Not bad at all. He will use his tactic. He'll look at this Magna, but doesn't seem like they can get far enough. But if he dashes the Crackman himself, there is enough space just barely at the top of the ladder there. Grievous himself will climb up, so whatever happens, he'll outnumber Rex 2-1, and he'll take a 6 dice swing since he's in Cunning Warlord. He does get a natty crit, +1 from expertise, and Rex is going to block the rest. So that will be a pin, 4 damage, and flipping the objective. Rex will spend his hunker to heal 1, try to dash, and instead remove the pin. So after the Separatists score 4, I think the clones are going to really want a big play. Kenobi could definitely take that objective back, but next up is either Pawns or the Shatterpoint. Pawns can flip 1, and the Shatterpoint would be huge. So they'll go to the top of the deck, and it is Pawns. Pawns will get Mace moving up the battlefield, and as good as it would be to get up the ladder, it would be bad to expose this back point to a sneaky capture by the B2s. So Mace will stay on the ground level. Pawns is in range of the Magna Guards, so he will just start with a shot in case he gets that reposition, and he gets a good roll. 2 crits coming through, 3 hits. The Magnas block only 2. 3 successes get through for Pawns. He's going to get not only a reposition, but also a pin, which the Magnas hate, on top of 4 damage. And that frees up his second action to get a hunker, so he can really go nuts with that Kenobi synergy. So he'll flip that side. Good turn for Pawns, getting some damage and flipping an objective. So the Separatists just have Dooku and B2s in the pile, neither of which are going to do a lot for us. So instead, I think it's time to pull Django from reserve. The focus is not going to be quite enough, even with the ingress point, to get range on Pawns. So he'll do a full advance, and then he'll hit him with 6 dice. Not a great roll from either of them, but 2 do sneak through. That's going to be 3 damage and a strain on Pawns. Pawns really doesn't like having that strain, so he will spend the hunker to get rid of it, and then he'll get closer to this box to try to make Django's life a little bit more difficult with the capture wire. Django will spend 1 force to jump up. And looking at the angles, a capture wire will still work to pull Pawns off and give him the pin. So he'll spend for that and flip the objective. That gives Separatists good old 4 points. That puts the struggle tracker 3 to their side. Scoring 3, going with Kenobi now to score 3 is not going to do great things for the Republic, because then both players will get momentum and the Separatists will be in a great position. I think they need to go for 4, so they'll flip the Shatterpoint. So if it is big play time, clones need to bring back some bodies. So it's 2/12 time, baby. Here we go. The one next to Django is going to hope for those 2 crits because Django's armor is pretty good. He has a pretty bad attack roll, gets 1 crit through with an expertise, so that's going to be 2 damage and a pin. Not flipping that objective, unfortunately. The other one will punch an exposed Grievous for nothing but fails, so he only removes Grievous's expertise. However, he is within range 3 of Rex, who will spend 1 force to do his own follow-up. Rex will dash just a little bit and punch Grievous in the face, getting 4 results. Grievous getting only 2 blocks and a single expertise, which won't add any blocks. So Rex does get 2, not quite enough to kill Grievous, but he can double shove him away and add 2 more damage on top of that. Grievous will then just use his dash to move a little more centrally and shore up that back objective from a sneaky capture. Republic scores 3 points, and the struggle tracker goes to the middle. Separatists draw from the top, and it is Count Dooku himself. They'll spend one of their force to instead get B2s and try to take back this objective here. Both B2s already have range on the 212th. He's the easiest target. So we'll start with the one on the left, and he is only able to put 2 damage through with expertise. Not the best. The next guy really wants to get that shove. He's going to pay the last force for saturation fire, trying to make sure he can make something happen with 8 dice. And he is able to. He gets 2 crits, 2 expertise. That's going to be another 5 damage and a shove, which will get the wound and push that 212th off the platform. Second action, the B2 will climb up, making it 2-1 on that objective, and the other B2 will go reinforce one of the back objectives. With that momentum, the 4 scores that Separatists make is enough to carry the struggle, and we go into Struggle 2. So the card that is drawn for Struggle 2 is We Need More Time, or as I like to call it, the Wiggle. Shatterpoint activations will get an extra dash, but who knows when we'll see the Shatterpoints again. Both have been used, but both players are also about to shuffle their decks. Whatever happens, the Magna is going to be in the middle. Clones are going to have to displace them with their first activation, most likely. And both back points are currently covered by primaries for the clones. Of course, whoever activates will leave their point. So really it comes down to, do clones want to activate Kenobi or Windu first? Either back point will be reinforceable by Dooku, so that will make things tougher. It will be almost impossible to get that point secure in the future. So I think the play here for the clones who get to choose is to have Windu go first and try to finish off the Magna Guards with damage. That way he'll be stuck in on top with the Magna Guards. So he'll be giving his big aura out to range 5 from the middle, and there won't really be a spot for anyone to come up and contest. Of course, he could whiff and not hurt the Magna Guards, but I think right now the clones want to make some big plays to stay in this. The first double pointer of this struggle is going to be the failure, which is the far objective for the clones. Not ideal. Windu will activate. He could push pawns up and remove his pin, but I think pawns is just going to be Dooku fodder next anyway, so instead we'll move Kenobi up the battlefield, get him a little closer, give him some more options on his next turn. Windu will take his own dash, climb, use the ingress, and get right there in melee with the Magnas. He'll take a little bit of a chance to not use his last force on an expose. He could use it on a reroll if need be, but it'd be nice to keep that for Hello There on Kenobi that he loves so much. And it seems to pay off. He gets a lot of hits, a lot of paint, 6 successes. The Magnas come up decent with 3 blocks, but it's not enough. That means Windu will be able to do 7 damage, finish off the Magnas right there. So that gets the clones a momentum. They take 2 objectives, Separatists take 1, clones score 2. The Seppies have to go with Dooku. The double is going to be in the middle on the expertise. Not great, not really a point they can flip with Dooku right now. So Dooku will just tell his B2 friend to dash over to the objective for reinforcements. He'll use his own dash and an advance to go after pawns, try to take a body off of the table. Not a great attack roll, just 2 crits getting through, which will not be a wound. It'll put pawns right on the brink. 6 damage, and Dooku will do a reposition back home. Not terrible, because now whenever pawns activates, he's probably going to get popped by not so fast. So actually a pretty fine result. Separatists score just 1, and they gain a momentum. Clones now must go with Kenobi. The double is the block, which is their close objective, so they will at least score 3. Kenobi will spend that last force to hello there, up the ladder, and try to start chipping into these B2s. He rolls 10 dice and gets 10 successes with 4 expertise, 6 hits. And the B2s block absolutely nothing. That's going to be a full tree for Kenobi. He can do 9 damage, which will be 8 after protection and a 1-shot, which he will do, get the momentum, try to get a nice quick win here in Struggle 2, but most importantly, take more living bodies away from the Separatists that they can't move around out of activation. He'll also get a triple shove and a disarm expose pin onto that B2. For his second action, Kenobi would love to take cover and get back to the home objective with a hunker, but the distance just quite isn't there, so he'll take a dash instead. Clones score 3, and they're feeling pretty great. As it rolls back around to the Seppies, they're not in a great spot, but Magnus or Django could flip that middle and make it interesting. The double is expertise, so it is the middle again, but the first draw is Grievous. Grievous is not going to do a whole heck of a lot here. I think he's better saved for later when he could make a really splashy impact. So 1 force goes to reserve, and then Dooku is drawn next. Not ideal, not terrible. He will tell a B2 to dash. They're wounded, but he'll get them more into the thick of things for when they do activate again. He'll dash towards Windu and Hail Mary. He could, on 3 successes past defense, he could get a double shove, but he only gets 2 through. With the extra damage, that's going to be 4 damage down to 3 after protection, and the shove is useless, so he'll take the reposition to go shore up a back objective in case it comes up next round, and then for his last action, he'll just take a hunker. Separatists score just 1, and they're basically throwing in the towel for Struggle 2, trying to set up for a really strong Struggle 3. The Republic is up next, and it is blocks for the double. So no matter what, they will score 3 objectives this turn and win the struggle. They draw pawns, which is actually kind of the perfect time to do it because he is under threat from not so fast on Django and could be a dead activation, but a dead activation here is not really an issue. So the choice is up to the Separatist player to go for not so fast or not, and I think the thing is, if you leave pawns alive, you could easily get his momentum in the next round with a kill, but he could also be moved around by his friends and score objectives. And in this activation could put some damage out to make things harder. So I think the play is to use not so fast. Django gets 3 damage through. That's a dead pawns. Meaningless momentum, but struggle over. So as clones win struggle 2, we flip over to struggle 3, which is going to be Signal the Transport. Nice and spaced out here. Not a bad pull for the Separatists because their far left objectives, the Republic's back right, is unguarded. Meanwhile, the Separatists have Dooku on their own bottom left. And it's a 1-1 tie up on the midline objective. So pretty neutral to good, I would say, starting position. And the extra effect is going to be some heals. That might come in handy. To start things off, the double is block, which is the far objective for the Separatists. And now seems like the time for General Grievous to go make a big splashy play. He can go coast to coast and definitely get that back objective with 2 advances to score 3. And if he can take out Rex in the meantime, then Kraken will be 1-0 on that midline objective, and it'll be a shutout by the Separatists. So if you've got a chance like that, I mean, Grievous is a killing machine. Even with his pistol, the follow-up B2 shot, he should be good. So he'll start with an advance. And he'll take a pistol shot into Rex. Pretty good on the results. Getting the crits there, which Rex can't do anything about. 3 crits down the tree is going to be 5 damage down to 4. A pin on Rex, which isn't too important, and a jump for Grievous as well. Grievous will use that jump to stay just within range 3 of this B2 to use Appetite for Destruction. And I really want to make sure Rex dies. So even though it's expensive, 2 force are going to go for Saturation Fire. 7 dice, and it was worth it. That is a big roll from the B2s. Getting the crits through, and even a hit, and an expertise. That's going to end up being 3 successes down the tree, plus an extra damage. So 5 damage down to 4 with protection. Dead Rex. And the B2 will be able to use a reposition to get nice and central. Grievous has used both his actions, but he'll spend 1 more force to scuttle and advance towards the back objective, scoring 4. An absolutely awesome start to Struggle 3 for the Separatists. It's going to be pretty hard for Republic to claw back from this with all the wounded models that they have on the board right now. As the Republic start their turn, the double is block once again down where General Grievous is. And they have to attack those doubles at this point. Can't be content with just a single. They draw Windu, which is a good pull, good as any. He is in a fine spot to take that objective. So first he'll move Kenobi, because he's the only other living body. He'll put Kenobi up next to Kraken, and that will at least set up some future turns. Then Windu will take his own dash and take cover, actually, since the shove will be enough to put him in range 2, and then he'll have a hunker, which will be handy. Since this is a very important kill, Windu will spend 1 to use the Coordinated Fire Expose from the ARF troopers, and he's going to need it. His 7 dice swing in Vapid is currently only doing 1 crit after the 2 hits are blocked out by Grievous. He could reroll 3 of those, but that's a lot of force. He only needs 2 successes for 5 damage and the wound, and he's at 1, so I think the math says 2, even 1 reroll should be a 75%, but just to make sure, we'll spend 2 force so that we don't completely deplete our force reserves. We'll need that in a tough struggle that's to come. So rerolling 2 failures gets a strike and 1 failure. That's going to be enough. 5 damage, get the wound on Grievous, and get the 2 points. Windu will go back to his Jedi Master stance at the end of that for a bit more durability, and for when the Shatterpoint comes up, he could refresh force and heal, which isn't bad. So the Separatists are next up in a good position. The double is once again block, where Grievous and Windu are duking it out. And Magna Guards come off the top. That's not a bad draw. Remember, we've got 1 Magna Guard under the bridge, which could get into melee with Windu, and then 1 up top on the center who could also get into melee with Windu. He does have a hunker and he'll have steadfast and melee, so he'll be a bit tricky to knock off, but if they can both shove him off of the objective, then his hunker will be spent, or if they can both get onto the objective, that'll feel really good as well. So the Magnas will move in with an advance each on their first action. The one in the back will start with a good old 6 dice attack, getting 2 crits, but Windu getting 2 expertise, which means he does get to turn 1 off. Just a single shove and a damage. He ignores both thanks to his identity. The Magna tries to shove closer, gets stopped by the 2/12, and is not quite in range to contest. So this second Magna will not be able to displace Windu, unfortunately for them. It does get 3 crits though. Windu does not turn any of them off, so that's going to be double shove. He ignores the first, and then they could get a disarm, but just to be safe, they will take a reposition to get a body onto the objective. He does have to spend his hunker to dash back to keep it from getting flipped. He takes 5 damage there, but down to 4 with Protector or Protection, and he heals another 1 back when spending the hunker. So Separatists are not able to flip an objective. They still score 2, and they're still feeling okay, but this is the opportunity that clones needed to get back into it. Ladies and gentlemen, it has happened once again. Block comes up, and it's that back point, highly contested. That's going to be the double. So clones already have it, and they draw ARF, which is not bad at all, bringing a couple bodies, a couple flimsy bodies, but a couple bodies back onto the table. Now, they could just move, take cover, and they'll be in a fine position to reinforce 2 objectives, flip 1 objective and reinforce the other. Or they could use 2 of the 4 force to dash, take an attack, and then climb. It leaves with just 2 force, but there's some refresh available potentially later from Windu if we need it. And we can potentially start softening up those Magna Guards, which are really difficult to one-shot and could prove a problem. At the very least, could put a pin on the Magna Guards to prevent that second one from moving contesting range easily. So I think that's what we'll do. Spend the 2 force, get into range with a defensive maneuver. The first one will attack the Magna Guard contesting the point, and not a terrible roll, but just 1 crit getting through. I take it back, maybe kind of a terrible roll. 1 crit gets through for a damage and a pin. The second one will attack the same Magna, and big blocks. Once again, just 1 crit getting through, so 2 more damage. 3 damage and a pin into the Magnas. Not terrible. They're now 7 away from getting wounded again. Windu or Kenobi could both do that fairly easily. Maybe even Rex it on a really good day. So they'll take it. I'll take it. And the pin isn't important. The ARF will then move and flip the 1 objective, reinforcing the double as well. Scoring 3, and they're starting to make a game of it, getting another momentum for the struggle tracker ending on the Separatist side. The madness ensues as we roll block again for the double scoring objective. The Separatist player does draw the Shatterpoint though, so that's going to be big. We've got a couple decent options for the Shatterpoint. The B2s could come back online, try to shoot the ARF down, in which case the B2s could then move and take both objectives, which is not bad at all. But shooting down ARF with a hunker token and the Kenobi effects is going to be really difficult. So that might not be the best play. Grievous has an outside chance. He could smack the ARF. He can definitely take care of the objective he's at. He could smack the ARF, and then if he gets really lucky, he can get some movements and relocate himself. over to the other objective and secure all 4 with the help of some Magnas. And that brings him back. B2s will come shortly, so I think I'll save them and go with Grievous. Quad arm stance is appealing here, but he doesn't get an extra movement until 6 successes, so I think he'll stay in Cunning Warlord and throw 6 dice into these ARF. But of course, first he gets his tactic, tells the Magnas to move, and that shakes their pin. Grievous is rolling 6 into 5. He gets 5 results, but the ARF come up big, blocking 3. So Grievous is only getting 2 down his tree for 4 damage, down to 3, and a pin. He does not get that critical jump, unfortunately. The ARF need 5 to get past their protection and wound them, so they will not spend their hunker. They'll keep it for the extra defense and for the dash ability. Grievous will then use Appetite for Destruction to move a Magna Guard in, so they outnumber the 0.3 to 2, and that Magna Guard will go for the kill with a 5 dice attack. And that attack gets 2 crits through, but that is it. That's 3 down to 2, not enough into these ARF troopers. They will get the double shove. One goes away for Steadfast. The other gets the ARF off the objective, but they'll just spend the Kenobi hunker, heal the pin, and dash back on for the future. So this highly contested point flips once again to the Separatists, but they don't get the big splashy play that they were maybe hoping for, taking control of all 3 points. They'll still score 3 and feel decent about life, though. Finally, we roll something different for the double pointer. It's the failure. That's going to be the back point where Dooku is. That's a tough break for the clones. It's going to be tough to dislodge Dooku. They draw Rex. And if anyone could do it, he could. But Dooku is out of range of the ARF for the expose. So that's going to make things tough. Rex could move them up, but I don't really have the force for an expose and a dash from Rex, which will make it hard for him to get there. And even then, 2 shoves, unlikely into Dooku, even with an expose, because he's got force to spend, and 2 shoves from this angle probably isn't going to get it done. Rex could try to flip that double pointer. It feels bad not to, with where the clones are at, but he can get the other point much more easily, so I think that's the smart play. I mean, if he goes for the flip and doesn't get it, game's over. If he only scores 2 points here, the game might also be over, so it's a tough decision. So he'll use his tactic on himself, get a little dash there, and save some force. Rex will make sure to stay in range 2 when he gets that hunker, so that he can at least heal 1 off of the ARF to make them a little more durable. Take an advance into melee with the Magna. And his attack roll is pretty good. He will get a couple crits through, which is what he needs. He'll get a shove with the Magna off the point, and the angles are such, yeah, he'll be able to shove himself into contention. So that's 3 bodies to 2 on the objective, 2 more damage onto the Magnas. Clones will score 2. Now the Separatists are going to go, and the double pointer they get is the Expertise, the middle point. That's takeable, and they drop B2s. So B2s have a pretty good play here. This B2 down at the bottom can attack the ARF and then move up, and then the other B2 can also attack ARF and go to that far point. And that will give a 2-to-1 on one objective and a 3-to-2 on the other, scoring 4 points, getting the momentum. So if they can do this wound and the ARF are hurt, then that will be a big play. So they'll pay 2 force to dash to get a little bit closer. And they'll make an attack. We'll start with this one attacking the ARF. And that is a good roll. That's going to be 4 damage down to 3 with a shove. That's a wounded ARF, and that's the ball game, because don't need to do another attack. Just climb on up, and boom goes the dynamite. So that wraps this one up. I do think it was a close game. Separatists were in control for a lot of it, but there were definitely a few opportunities and a few breaks that could have gone a different way, and clones would have been right there in it. I think as far as learnings coming out of this game, something on both sides. For the clone player, I think it would have been best to have Windu on the other side so that he wasn't across from Django. Would have made it a little bit easier for him to get stuck in, have his aura working sooner for that little extra protection. Getting into that standoff with Django was not ideal in the least, and I think the ingress points on that far side of the board could have been workable, so didn't need to prioritize that as much. I think the 2/12th not getting the shove on the Magnus early, and then also not getting the shove on the Shatterpoint going into Django was a tough break. One of those probably should have gone through, and then it's a very different game. In hindsight, maybe they should have spent the 1 force to expose Django on that second attack, but leaving Kenobi with 0 force so he can't hello there does feel kind of bad, but given his positioning, he probably could have been all right. From the droid player perspective, I think the big thing they could have done differently was the positioning on the Magna Guard on that middle tower. If they had been just a little bit in a different spot, they could have body blocked the entrance so that neither Windu or Kenobi could get up there and shove them off. And if they're in that position, then they're feeling great going into the next struggle because they have a lock on the middle and on the back points, and it would have been very hard for Republic to claw back from that. So just a small positioning tweak would have made things really good for the Separatists. A couple mistriggers on both sides, so I'll try to clean that up in future battle reports. Apologies for that, but luckily none of them really swung the game. I'm excited to get back at it and try some maybe spicier, more unique lists, but happy to start off with just a nice classic matchup. And I think it was a good game. Hopefully you did too. If you've got any feedback, let me know, and see you guys next time.